Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. My name is Marcy. I have 4 kids, the youngest of whom is Freya. She has a rare syndrome called Cornelia de Lange syndrome. It affects her growth and development, and we spend our time on this channel educating about Cornelia de Lange syndrome, disability, and how you can still find joy and have a normal-ish life when you have a child with a disability. And today I wanted to talk about Freya's hearing. I have had a lot of questions since Freya got her hearing aids about how did we know she had hearing loss? Is hearing loss common with Cdls? A lot of, I thought she could hear, could she not hear this whole time? And I'm gonna kind of go through and answer all those questions and go through the timeline of Freya getting hearing aids. So hearing loss in people with Cdls is fairly common. In the NICU, Freya failed her regular hearing test where they put the probe in your ear and they send sound in. And so it was recommended that she do a 2-hour-long ABR. An ABR is auditory brainstem response. And basically they are looking at the response in the brainstem to sound. And she did that test. It was 2 hours long. She had to be sleeping and quiet during the whole thing, and we managed to get that done. And she passed with flying colors. She could hear, no hearing loss issues. They recommended, because she has Cdls, that we follow up as she got older with additional ABRs just to check and make sure that she didn't have any hearing loss in the future. We also were recommended that when she went under anesthesia for something else, that we should then do the ABR, because you do have to be quiet during it so that you're not getting any other sounds that your brainstem is responding to. They only want the sounds they're putting in. So as the child gets older and can't stay quiet, then they recommend that they are under sedation for the process. Now, we have been very lucky that Freya has required very few surgeries growing up. Her first surgery was when she was 18 months old, and that was her eyelid surgery. She had a droopy eyelid on her left side that needed to be raised so that she could see. Her eyelid was covering half of her eye, and they were afraid that over time the brain would just shut off that eye because it wasn't getting a full picture. So we did that surgery, but it was right during the pandemic, and we couldn't coordinate with the audiologist at the hospital to get that done. I mean, COVID was crazy. I don't even know. I think they were trying to do less long surgeries unless they were absolutely necessary. I don't remember the exact reason. But for that reason, we just kind of were like, well, we won't do it now. So the next time she had to have a surgery actually was going to be done by her ENT. She needed ear tubes. And that was when she was 4 years old. So we talked to the ENT and said, hey, we haven't done an ABR since she was born, but she passed. Should we do another one? And he honestly even was like, I don't know if it's necessary, but because we're gonna be in there anyway, like, we might as well just do it. So we went ahead and did it. That one, for some reason, the audiologist that did that would not give Freya a diagnosis of hearing loss, even though the test showed hearing loss. She said because we did it at the same time as the ear tubes, she wasn't comfortable giving a diagnosis at that time because she could have had fluid in her ears that were causing the results to be skewed. I was very frustrated, to say the least, because we were not told before doing that it was a possibility that the audiologist could not give us a diagnosis. She knew we were going in for ear tubes, and I really felt like that could have been a conversation beforehand of her just saying, hey, if you're putting in ear tubes, there could be fluid in the ear, and I don't feel comfortable giving you a definitive diagnosis, et cetera, et cetera. But Anyway, she would not give her a diagnosis, even though it did show hearing loss. So we were told to come back and put her under sedation again, just for a hearing test, which I was not comfortable with because kids with CDLS can have adverse reactions to sedation. It's a combination of how small they are and how small their airway is, and just a reaction to sedation. Freya had a reaction to the sedation her first time going under. Her second time going under, she did better. When I say a reaction to sedation, she didn't have like an allergic reaction, but she had a really hard time coming out of anesthesia and needed oxygen coming out of anesthesia. So I didn't feel comfortable putting her under for just the hearing test. And honestly, I felt like she was hearing okay at that point, which is fairly common with CDLS. A lot of parents, and this is on the CDLS website, a lot of parents will report that they feel like their child's hearing is better than what they are testing at. So for some reason, they're not entirely sure if ABR testing is completely accurate for our kids. So I just put it in the back of my mind that the next time she was under anesthesia, we would do another hearing test, and at that point, hopefully get a diagnosis. So a year later, we had a problem with Freya's tubes. We thought they had fallen out. Even her ENT had told me, yes, they'd fallen out. But when they went in for surgery, they hadn't fallen out. Her body had just kind of grown tissue over top of the tubes. And it's all kind of gross, so I'm gonna leave it there so I don't gross anyone out. So they took those tubes out. Her body was having a reaction to those tubes, and so they put new tubes in. When we did that, I did have a conversation with the audiologist beforehand and just asked her, like, hey, are we going to get a diagnosis out of this, or do you not feel comfortable giving a diagnosis, just like the last audiologist? And she said, no, I 100% will be giving you a diagnosis today if we see hearing loss. So they did the test, they did see hearing loss again, and it was a little bit worse than the first time. So we went ahead and took molds for her hearing aids and set up an appointment to get the hearing aids. The kind of weird thing with people with CDLS is you can have no hearing loss, then have hearing loss, and then it can get better. And no one is really sure exactly why. I was reading an article that said they think it might have something to do with the bones in your ear, but they're not exactly sure why that happens. So we have to keep an eye on Freya and make sure that as we're using these hearing aids, that then her hearing doesn't get better again. So we will keep an eye on that. The thing I have learned with CDLS is there's just a lot of quirky things that go on with our kids, that there's not a lot of kids in the world that have this, and then even less kids that have CDLS with hearing loss. So there's not a lot of studies that can be done. They just kind of look and rely on parents to be sharing information that they can gather and see if it is true for most kids. The other thing with CDLS is there are, I think it's 7, but I know they are trying to get, I think like 2 or 3 more classified, 7 different gene changes that are all classified as CDLS. And within those different gene changes, you can see different symptoms and different things going on with these kids, but it has an overreaching characteristics and symptoms that all our kids share. So it's kind of an interesting, we're learning as we're going type of thing. So for now, we are going to do the hearing aids. How is Freya doing with her hearing aids? About as good as I thought she would do. She'll leave them in for like 10 minutes as long as she's doing something else, but as soon as she really recognizes that they're in there, she yanks them right out. I was talking to another mom whose son wears hearing aids, and she said it took them about 2 years to get him to wear his all the time. And I know, because I've already been told by people that I should just make her do it, and I should just, you know, hold her hands down and keep them in. The thing with Freya, and I assume with a lot of non-speaking children, Freya communicates in action. And she also has a sensory processing disorder. And so she processes sensory input differently than the typical person. And so if she is pulling at her hearing aids, I don't know if this is hurting my ear, or all this noise is too overstimulating, or maybe the test, because she has CDLS, showed more hearing loss than she actually has, and it's really just making things super loud. I don't know. So we do try to distract her and redirect her and try to keep him in as long as we can. But ultimately she is communicating to me, Mom, this is not working for me. So I am then going to allow her to take them out, because she's the only one that's inside her body and knows what's going on. And I let Freya communicate with us about her health. There's certain non-negotiables for sure. She has to take her seizure medication because she has epilepsy. She has to take her reflux medication because she has severe reflux. The hearing, to me, is not as important. Freya, more than likely, will be non-speaking her whole life. We are working on alternate forms of communication with sign language and with a device, hopefully, if our insurance ever approves it. And she doesn't need to hear. I don't know why that's such a controversial statement. I know we are trying to do what is best for her, and we are trying to make educated guesses on what that is. But sometimes maybe being a little hard of hearing is just okay. And that's kind of where we're going. We're going to continue to try with the hearing aids. We're not giving up. We're going to continue to put them in every day with little increments and try to increase the amount of time that she leaves them in. But it's a long process. And in the end, if she's telling us, hey, this doesn't work for me, we're going to honor that decision. So I'm just thinking of the comments that are going to come in after I say these things out loud, but here we are. So that's our hearing journey with Freya and CDLS. Stay tuned. I'm going to try to get some cute video of Freya when she's home from school so that it's not just me blabbering on the whole time. But a big part of this channel is to educate people about CDLS. So occasionally we will have these videos where I just talk about CDLS and how it affects my child, and from what I gather within the community and what papers they are publishing, how CDLS affects more kids and people as well. Here's one of Freya's outfits that I altered. What do you think? Let me see that sleeve. Do you like it? I love the little like poofy detail in these sleeves.
I'm in the baby swing. Let's see if we can make her. Oh, you're so happy, Freya? You're so happy?
Still loving the swing set.
Claire was wearing the same pants, but on her shirt.
Claire was?
Yeah,
Oh, Fiona has those shirt that matches those pants.
Oh no, Freya. Oh no.
Oh, geez. Yeah, one thing I don't like about this one. You should look at my hold up.
No, clap your hands.
Could you? So close to a full hold up. Fifi, you should try.
Nah, I'm gonna break the swing.